there. Can we talk about snakes?
What a thrill.
Oh, you knew I had to do 'em, my dudes. I've been handling snakes since I was a fat child. Hell, they've made up a huge part of the animals I've worked with in my career of animal education and outreach. I know my snakes. In fact, like, if you took my hand and like stuck it into that Gom Jabbar Test of Humanity box, like that thing, the box in Dune with the hand, like the Gom Jabbar Test of Humanity, only instead of like horrific pain that would scar me for life, it was like inside the box, like, wouldn't be like pain, it would just be like a snake, but like I had to identify the snake just by like touching the snake and figuring out what snake it was. I could do it. I could totally do it, you guys. I do want to disclaim and say not all cultures view snakes in a negative light. Snakes live on every single continent but Antarctica, and in a lot of different cultures have been regarded as symbolic of healing, alchemy, fertility, and divinity. But for most people watching this video, I'm gonna assume you live in a Western Judeo-Christian society. And our view of snakes here is, well, here's a funny montage set to music. So thanks to colonialism and Western-produced mass media, we don't have a lot of good things to say about snakes. And as someone who thinks snakes are cool and good, this always sort of pissed me off. Ideally, I wanted to choose a snake and talk about it a bit, but I kind of came to a bit of a pickle because I wasn't sure which snake I wanted to choose to talk about for this video. The venomous hognose snake that bit me at a birthday party I was working at once. The king snake that is not only immune to rattlesnake venom, but it actually eats other venomous snakes. The Woma python that doesn't constrict its prey so much as slam its prey into the walls of the den it's overtaken like it's in the middle of a drunken bar fight. Did I mention this snake is Australian? The gopher snake that can shake its tail to mimic a rattlesnake but does its job a little too well and gets killed by fearful people a lot. The ball python, a snake so fucking chill, not only was it considered symbolic of the earth and villagers would actually hold funerals for them, but according to legend, Cleopatra wore one on herself as living jewelry. The asp, another snake Cleopatra has a strong affiliation with. The flying tree snake that, I don't know why they call them that. Well, instead of choosing one species of snake and running with it, a bit hard there as there are 3,000 species of snakes, I wanted to go back to my old roots as an animal educator and make a list of misconceptions and fears we have about snakes. Yes, list. Am I getting into this YouTube channel thing or what? Number 1. Snakes are slimy. I heard this a lot. And as always, like I told the screaming children, snakes are a lot of things that begin with the letter S. They're smooth, scaly, shiny, sexy, but they're not slimy. Snakes, like all reptiles, have scales. And scales are made out of a protein called keratin. We have keratin too in our hairs and nails. The snake's slimy appearance is due to the shiny appearance keratin creates. Your fingernails aren't slimy, neither are snake scales. If your fingernails are slimy, you might want to go see a doctor. Yeah. Number 2, snakes are poisonous. I've made a few videos where I explain venom versus poison, so go watch them on the link I'm going to put in here. But for all our fears of being bitten by a venomous snake, or as the zoos call them, death noodles, only about 20% of all known snakes are venomous. The rest of the snake family kill their prey via constriction, which goes into our next misconception. Number 3, snakes can strangle you to death. So before we touch on this, I do want to explain a little bit about how a non-venomous snake normally kill their prey. Constriction is usually misinterpreted as suffocating or strangling the animal, squeezing it until it can't breathe. But constriction is a little more extreme. See, with constriction, the snake wraps around the chest of its intended prey and squeezes it to the point where its heart stops, cutting off all circulation throughout its body into its brain. Damn. Like, I want you to imagine that for a second. To be that physically strong, you can squeeze something until its heart stops beating. Like many reptiles, snakes were not raised by their parents, so no one taught them any table manners. So snakes don't chew their food. Instead, they open their mouths to reveal many needle-like teeth, each one curved backwards like a fishhook from hell. Using these impressive teeth, they expand their jaw. It's attached to ligaments as opposed to the rest of their skull. And they expand their mouth to the equivalent of you opening up your mouth wide enough to eat a watermelon or cantaloupe or honeydew. And using these teeth, they slowly push their food down their gullet. So a snake couldn't just wrap around your neck and choke me, Snake Daddy. They'd need to be big enough to wrap around your chest and cut off that sweet, sweet blood circulation to your brain. So let's figure out which snakes are actually big enough to do this. Here are the following snakes that are big enough to constrict a human being. African rock python, Burmese python, Anaconda, and the reticulated python. So actually, yes, there have been instances of large snakes successfully killing adult humans, though many of these instances involve the victim being intoxicated. So unless you got a drinking problem and live in one of the following regions where these snakes hang out, or you happen to be a zookeeper in the herpetology department of a drinking problem, the odds are you being constricted to death are thankfully pretty low. But if you are a wasted zookeeper who went on a bender and fell asleep in the reptile house, can a snake eat you? Well, hypothetically yes, but it would be really hard. See, we have shoulders, and as wide as a snake can open its mouth, the snake would have to be pretty damn huge or the human pretty damn skinny to have a snake successfully swallow a person. There are alleged stories, but the odds of getting killed and eaten by a giant snake outside of a movie you watch on Netflix because you're stoned is pretty small. Number 4. I'm not even going to say it because it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm just going to leave this here. Yeah, okay. So, I'd hope by now you understand that a snake as aggressive and as dangerous as the anaconda is not evil. It's not an evil animal that murders for fun. Snakes can indeed throw up, but the snake is not some Roman nobleman at the vomitorium eating in gluttony. Snakes throw up for the same reason you and me might. They're stressed, or scared, or drank too much. Number 5. Snakes are all tail. Incidentally, when you look at a snake, you're actually looking at most of its body. While some arboreal, tree-dwelling, snakes have a slightly longer tail, the tail of the snake is very small in proportion to the rest of its body. So for those of you who are curious, where do we find out where the tail begins? Well, this takes us to probably the biggest question I get asked about snakes. It's not a misconception, this is just a very sincere question I am frequently asked by children. Probably the most common question I get asked by children outside of, yeah, boy or girl, or he real, or I have a cat. Where do snakes poop? I think most of us understand that everybody poops, including snakes, but we aren't really sure where. Honest confession, when I was a kid, I thought snakes pooped out of the tip of their tail, like when you squeeze toothpaste out of a tube. Snakes, like the other reptiles and platypus we have talked a little bit about on the show, have a cloaca. Go watch the platypus episode, I talk about this a bit. And on the snake, their cloaca is a little flap right where the tail begins, sort of like a trapdoor where poop comes out of. So if you can find this cloaca, you can actually find out where the tail on a snake begins. Snakes are like any other animal I've addressed on this show. They're an animal, and they don't exist on this earth to tempt you or hurt you or eat you. They're just like any other animal, getting into their pants, one snake at a time. Growing up with negative portrayals of this animal in our culture and media does install a fear, or at least a dislike and trust of snakes, which is a problem for me because many snakes are personally victims of reptile smuggling and deforestation. A lot of them in the wild are endangered. And if we hate and fear snakes, we won't take the steps necessary to protect them. Snakes play an integral part in the ecosystem, acting as pest control to vermin that could spread disease or eat our snacks, or even to protectors like the above-mentioned king snake that will eat snakes that can pose a threat to people. I'm very proud of the understanding I have for these awesome animals, and as I have said in the past, everything in the animal kingdom has something to offer, and it's important that with all animals we learn about, even if they're not our favorite, we always have an open mind and an open heart. That's all for today. Thanks for letting me talk about snakes.